me to question my faith when I am, he doesn't even know me. I've met him a few times, but I don't know Ben Carson. He was a doctor, perhaps an okay doctor, by the way. You can check that out, too. We're not talking about a great... He was an okay doctor.
I don't know about okay doctor. He was the first man to separate conjoined twins.
Because he's a doctor and he hired one nurse, he's going to end up being the president of the United States. But for him to criticize me on my faith is absolutely... And for him to read from the Bible... In his memory, it looked like he memorized it about 2 minutes before he went on stage.
Do you think you're more a man of faith than he is?
Ben Carson is not going to be your next president. That I can tell you.
You think you're more a man of faith than Ben Carson is?
I would say I can't quote him. I can only say I am a man of faith. I don't know enough about Ben Carson. But if you look at his past, which I've done, he wasn't a big man of faith. All of a sudden, he's become this man of faith.
Alrighty then, so Ben Carson has responded to the Donald Trump New Day interview, telling the Washington Post, quote, "I don't want to get into a gladiator fight with Donald Trump," and saying he was not trying to criticize Trump's faith in any way in his comments. So let's talk about some of this. CNN senior political analyst and editorial director of the National Journal, Ron Brownstein, is here. I'm also joined by Republican strategist Cheri Jacobus. I don't even know what to make of this because Ben Carson became famous for speaking at a national prayer breakfast where he dissed President Obama. He's put religion front and center for the time I've known he's been in the public eye, Ron.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, this is kind of almost a daily occurrence with Donald Trump, kind of lashing out at one of his rivals in this kind of fire hose style of campaign criticism. And look, it really goes to the ultimate issue. I mean, he's obviously struck a nerve. He's running at roughly one third of Republican primary voters in your new CNN ORC poll today, saying there's sort of an incredible number in a field this big. But ultimately, I think between now and when the voting starts in February, his rivals are going to have to figure out a way to make these questions about his temperament more relevant than they are today for more Republican voters. I mean, the question of whether they want him to be the face of the party, much less the president, is something that I think ultimately, if they are going to dent this, this machine that Trump has going, his rivals are going to have to kind of force front and center.
So Cheri, you're a Republican strategist. Ben Carson just sort of blew off Donald Trump's comments. Is that the right move? Because that's what many of the other candidates have done. And look, they're at 3%, 2%, 1%.
A couple of things are going on here. First of all, Ben Carson said what he needed to say, and what Trump said in response is ridiculous. A couple of things are going to change the dynamic of this poll. First of all, according to Nate Silver of 538, arguably one of the best election prognosticators in the business, he says that Trump is probably not going to be the nominee for many reasons. He notes a couple of things. First of all, the media has helped Trump. The media, good for Chris this morning for pushing back and doing his job whenever you have any candidate talking like that. And the media has covered Trump more than all the other candidates combined. I think that has a lot to do with his numbers.
But still, nobody thought he would garner 32%.
Yeah, but you know what?
Nobody did.
But it was feeding itself throughout the summer. We are now post-Labor Day, and here's another thing that's going to change the dynamic. Trump has now gone after Carly Fiorina on her looks. He has gone after Ben Carson, and these are the two candidates who are not part of the so-called, quote, establishment. So I don't think that's going to go over very well. And also he covers only one issue that he cares about, that he stumbled into, the illegal immigration issue. It is the only issue on his website. He does not want his core voters to know some of the other things he has said and supposedly stands for, because they won't agree.
Well, I just want to say one thing about Carly Fiorina, and Ron, maybe you can address this, and maybe this is what you're going to say. Like, he's attacked Carly Fiorina, and you say that his comments about women will matter. Well, Carly Fiorina got 3%. She's not rising like a rocket in the polls.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, the first thing to keep in mind is just to underscore that point. At this point in 2007, Rudy Giuliani was leading in the national polls. At this point in 2011, Rick Perry was leading in the national polls.
Did they have 32%?
Yeah, well, Rudy Giuliani was higher. Rudy Giuliani got to 50% at points in 2007, yes, and Rick Perry was right around 30 or maybe even in the high 30s. So, and neither of them ended up winning a single primary. There's a lot that has to happen between now and Iowa and New Hampshire in February. But I think that the clear message of this poll is really especially to the other Republican candidates, that Donald Trump is not going to deflate on his own, and that if they are going to get past him, they are going to have to figure out a way to raise questions about his temperament, his ideology, coming at him from the right on some of the positions that he's taken before. This is not going necessarily to deflate on its own. It's not simply a question of Trump going away. They're going to have to find a way to flank him, whether it's Scott Walker and Ted Cruz probably going at him from the right, or people like John Kasich and Jeb Bush trying to mobilize that center-right Republican coalition that has usually picked the nominee in recent times.
I will say the only public figure out there that has gotten Trumpy and responding to Trump has been the guy from REM, because REM was mad that Trump played their song at the right. Not only Michael Stipe, but who's Miller? I think he's also in the band.
Yeah.
He called Donald Trump an orange clown. Is that what we have? Is that what the candidates have to say?
I don't think that's what they have to do. But here's what they do have to do. They have to hold his feet to the fire. The media has to cover this stuff rather than just yawning. And I think that Chris Cuomo did an excellent job of that. When a candidate of any party uses the type of language and has that type of temperament, that should be run on a loop. And reporters and anchors need to call him on it rather than just saying, "Hey, voters, what do you think?" And as John Avalon said on CNN, sitting there chewing their cud.
Did you see Diana Bash's interview with Mr. Trump? She was excellent.
He's great for ratings, and that's why the media loves him. A lot of the mainstream media loves Donald Trump because, it hurts the Republican Party and helps Hillary. But at some point, it's time to get serious. We're now in the post-Labor Day mode. People are paying attention.
Ron, last word.
I don't know if it's that, but look, the temperament issue is already there. In the Quinnipiac poll last week, only 50% of Republicans and a third of the country overall said they believe he had the temperament to handle an international crisis. This is a campaign calling out for a 3 a.m. phone call ad. Do you want Donald Trump at the other end of the phone in an international crisis? I think ultimately, as I said, the other Republican candidates are the one who have to raise doubts about him, because this poll, I think, underscores that he is not simply going to go away on his own.
Ron, there's a lot of fodder for a lot of ads. And I think the 3 a.m. call is just one of them. But I think that Donald Trump has put it all out there, and frankly, I think that's what the media likes, because this can come back to haunt Republicans. Trump is. I don't think he'll be the nominee as a result of this, despite the numbers where they stand now. It's such a large field.
I got to leave it there. Cheri Jacobus, Ron Brownstein, thanks so much.